Hi, I'm Jen Bonet, Executive Director of the Creative Coast. The Creative Coast is a nonprofit organization that was founded over 20 years ago to help entrepreneurs and creatives and technologists succeed in the Savannah region. So Entrepreneurs Night is really a live podcast where we interview a successful entrepreneur from the Savannah region. Our goal is to document and share the origin stories of the companies that are getting things done here in the Savannah region. Good evening. This is Jen Bonet, Creative Coast, and tonight is Entrepreneurs Night. And tonight we're thrilled to have with us Will Dent of Dente Apps and AeroParts Now. So Will, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little bit about your background, and tell us how you got into tech, so to speak.
So my background is I've spent 7 years in the Army, 14 years at Gulfstream, 6 years out with my own company doing software development, and most recently in the past 3 years, spending most of my time with AeroParts Now. And from how did I get into tech? I was a Commodore 64 and running my own bulletin board system back in the day at 12 years of age with multiple floppy. And I said floppy to my 11-year-old son, and he's like, what was that? And I'm just thinking to myself, I don't even have a floppy to show him. But that was the start. Commodore 64. Just been hacking away at that and all the way until today, and continue to code periodically because it is a lot of fun building stuff.
That's really cool. I started on a TRS-80.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Radio Shack TRS-80s. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
that.
Yeah, so fun stuff. And how'd you end up in Savannah? Are you Savannah native, or how'd you get here?
So Uncle Sam misplaced me, and I'm glad. It's a great area. The funny thing is, I went into the Army, and that was my step into aviation. So I'd always been playing around with the computer. Decided I was going to go to the Army first, went out to Hawaii, spent some time out there, and the Army transferred me to Hunter, and I spent 18 months at Hunter, and I got out of the Army and I got a job at Gulfstream as a licensed mechanic for 18 months, traveling around fixing airplanes, and that was a lot of fun. 18 months is the minimum time that you could have to be in a position before Gulfstream will let you move somewhere else. I put together a portfolio of all the websites that I had built to date, had already built some e-commerce sites and built, and again, this is 97. So things were still a little bit in their infancy.
Yeah. Early.
Yeah, I mean, I had a hobby of I like to actually go out and dance, like ballroom dancing and swing dancing and stuff like that. And I met a shoe vendor that sells shoes on the road, and that was the first e-commerce website I built. And I found myself at a hotel for 3 days straight, taking pictures of a model standing up on hotel furniture with lights, taking pictures of hundreds of shoes to build my first e-commerce site. And so from that sort of body of work, I put together a portfolio and got a job in the marketing department at Gulfstream as the web producer. And I put together a business plan to create the interactive marketing department. And that sort of grew into, why don't you take the CRM department? Why don't you take direct marketing? What would make sense? Why don't you take over the CRM group as well? And so it was really just looking at sort of opportunities to integrate things throughout the enterprise at Gulfstream. And timing's right, because aviation is so high tech when it's the airplane, except the business systems stay behind, the website stays behind, they're not as up to date. So really it was just an opportunity to look at any other industry and say, wow, they're doing all these things. How can I help Gulfstream propel themselves forward? So it was really a great 12 and a half years that I spent in the marketing department in charge of basically anything web or customer facing that was digital, and invaluable experience and relationships out of that, to the point that in my own company, Dente, we did some work for them as well. And that was, to me, a good testament that we're doing the right things and have the right relationships. And And that's, probably a big life lesson is the world is small. So make sure you do the best job you can for anyone that you're doing work for, because you never know who's going to be your boss, and you never know who you're going to be pitching and asking to do business with.
Yeah, very cool. And then you launched Dente. You grew it to a certain stage, but you built this relationship that has turned your focus towards AeroParts Now. So talk about that period.
Yeah. So one of the relationships that I built at Gulfstream was with somebody that had his own software as a service company that he ultimately sold, but he provided software for all of the maintenance tracking for Gulfstream's fleet. And again, such a small world. He had a friend working at a sister company of AeroParts Now that basically said, hey, they're out trying to be a marketplace in this industry. The owner would like some help. And so my friend got called in from his experience with a software as a service company. And he said, I have the right person to come in and help as well. The two of us, basically, we looked at AeroParts Now back when it was trying to be a marketplace, trying to be the next Amazon. And from that, we went and visited and sat with the current customers. And one of the things, Jen, that stuck out that you told me years ago was, whenever you have an idea, before you start coding, go and talk to 100 people and see if it's worth doing, because you might find at the end of that, it is, or it might evolve, which really, you already knew the answer to that. It's going to evolve into something a little different, but I need to follow that path. So sort of in the spirit of what you said, we went and visited all these different customers. We even went to other people that we knew that would, like to sell parts on a marketplace and not use other marketplaces to sell aircraft parts. We traveled to several different parts of the country. And in that exercise, I put together what I thought was what AeroParts Now should do. And it really is based off of me being in the industry, walking around trade shows and saying, this could be done a lot better, the way we sell aircraft parts. And the way we sell aircraft parts in the world is closer to a used car sales business than it is the sophisticated jets and technology that these parts are being put on as far as the aircraft. And with that, the owner of the company, the investor of the company said, well, that sounds interesting, Will. Would you like to do that? And so we basically mothballed that entire AeroParts Now company and we started it over. So it truly, we pivoted, but the pivot was just, we rewrote all the software, completely different business model, completely different software. And fast forward to now, I'm, an owner and part of the company. And I know the investor behind it is from oil and gas and doesn't have a lot of experience in aerospace, but they're very, very supportive of this business. And it's been good in the entryway. So it's a little bit of a unique entryway in the sense of how we did this. I've done the other route where I've had a business idea and tried to get money and get investors and had some success with that, and then some failures and some lessons learned. So this was a little bit of an interesting thing. So it sort of goes back to just make sure you do a good job for the people that you're working with, because it's a small world that we're in.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about the model and how it went from kind of trying to build Amazon for auto parts to where you ended up today.
So,
and how you make money, right? I think.
Yeah, how do you make money? So we're software as a service that charges subscription fees. Is the starting point for us. But where our industry is we're back where Amazon was a bookseller, and then they decided to start selling some other things. And then small businesses said, wow, I need to get in on this and put my stuff out there, because Amazon's going to take my business. And ultimately, now you have we all place orders on Amazon, and stuff is coming from all these different suppliers, and some of them are small to medium businesses. Some of them have retail storefronts and they have inventory and they have their systems with their inventory. When Amazon started out early, you're uploading photographs, you're typing out descriptions, and so it's a very manual and laborious process. You could not keep up with orders coming in with Amazon now in that process. I mean, you could not upload manual photographs individually and typing descriptions and adjusting inventory on Amazon's website, and you would get kicked off the site because you would sell probably inventory that you didn't have. Our entire industry right now, the inventory sits in these systems that are very antiquated. They're old, and the marketplaces that we have in this industry do not have pictures, do not have prices on parts. It's really just like a listing service of part numbers, and here is somebody that potentially sells it. And one of the things back when I worked for that aerospace manufacturer, every morning they look at the airplanes that are AOG, aircraft on ground, and more than once, Gulfstream will ship a part halfway around the world to get an airplane up and running. A week later, they'll find out that very part is sitting on that airfield when that airplane was there. It's just someone needed to walk into one of the hangars or a maintenance shop to find it. And a lot of times it's simply because the inventory is inside of systems that don't have any awareness outside of their network or their environment. And it's because the vast majority of ERP systems, the inventory management systems, sit on these systems that are not built for the web, not built to collaborate. And the companies that run them are very complacent in not wanting to do anything about it. So we built essentially the part that our industry doesn't have, which is to take all that inventory that's locked up in these systems and enable it so it can be synchronized to all the different marketplaces. We set up a way for the imagery. And the other thing for our industry is traceability. Is you can imagine with an airplane, you want to know the source of your part, how it was built. And a lot of the parts that are on airplanes, they're used parts that are going on the aircraft. So you might have a set of landing gear that one day is on one airplane and then 5 years later is on a different airplane because they pull them off after so many hours or landings, and they refurbish them or overhaul them and then put them back on the next airplane. So all that information has to be tracked and traced, and you won't buy these parts unless you have access to that information. So that's why it's more like used car sales business right now, where somebody sends in a request and they wait for responses, and they put a quote together, and then brokers will get involved. There's a lot of noise, a lot of inefficiencies in our industry. And so we've created a way for streamlining that whole process and automating it, looking at the entire supply chain and enabling it. And we're more like a Shopify. So we provide a branded storefront as well. It's one of the things I was thinking about is our first customer that we've had for a year has 25,000 parts, products or part numbers that they have in inventory. And they've been using our system to quote and send quotes out to their customers and get responses. Our system is all web-based. And up until a year and a half ago, they would type in the information in the ERP system, download a PDF, attach it to the email, send the email, and just wait to see if something happens. With our system, we can read an email that comes in, or we can read a request that comes in from any of these marketplaces, look in their inventory, basically draft a quote. And even if they want, it'll automatically send out that quote to the customer. And it's all web-based. It's more like a CRM where we track the entire process. Nobody else has that in the industry, where you can track the entire process from start to finish, and you can build on that to do marketing campaigns, life cycle campaigns, any of these sort of things. And then a year and a half later, that customer in the marketing department, they said to us, I caught wind that they're trying to build a Shopify website with those 24,000 parts, and they're hiring interns to upload it, and they're going to do all this. I said, Marcus, you just need to go into our settings in the system and flip the switch and set up the website address. You already have all this. And so we had them launched in 2 weeks. And that was last week when we launched them. And the thing is, they were sitting on it the whole time. But the point of the story is our industry is so, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
And so we've created essentially a way to get them, enabled to do e-commerce, because I think there's like $85 billion worth of transactions a year in our industry. And I'm sure no one knows for sure, but I'm sure it's less than 2% are actually transacted online, that everything's done over email or phone. I don't think fax is too big anymore, but yeah.
It's really interesting. I know a little bit about it because I dated a broker for a little while. Yeah, so I know a little bit about the industry. So let me get techie for a second. What'd you build the platform on?
Amazon Web Services, and we're using all serverless, function as a service. So if you Google has that, Azure has that, and Amazon has their version, Lambdas.
Yeah.
And we're using a NoSQL. We're using DynamoDB for most of the data. All the search is done in Elasticsearch, which of course I think it's going to have a different name now with the there's a fork in the road with Elasticsearch and licensing, and the front end is built in modern ways using React and React Native and some native stuff as well. We built integrations for the two predominant ERP systems, which those are traditional client server applications, the Windows FAT client, and then Oracle database in the background. So we built agents that install in our customer's environment, and basically we modernize the ERPs with a RESTful API that our system can talk to their ERP system. It's amazing. Like, these systems don't have RESTful APIs.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the old ones don't. That was one of the big issues when I was in the healthcare industry, is a lot of the big old systems that ran on things like AS400, there was no APIs, you couldn't get the data out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So tell us about like kind of where you're at. Like, how many employees do you have? How many customers do you have?
I had to write down the counts because we're growing. So we have 6 full-time employees. We have 2 open positions on our website, just to FYI. And
we've got a job board.
Okay. All right. I will get out there with that. We have 6 contractors that we're using. Some are local here in Savannah that we've used from time to time. And then we have we have Minneapolis, Texas, and a couple different areas. So we're all remote now. We used to have an office in downtown Savannah for a little over a year. When COVID hit, we were on a month-to-month. And so we just decided to go ahead and close up the office and go home. And we've been home ever since. So yeah. And then as far as customers, we have a little over 20 customers now. And at the end of last year, we had less than 10. Excellent. So we're feeling good going into this year. And we're about a month and a half out to be able to announce a customer that we've had for a month and a half. We have 90 days with them, and then we get to talk about what we're doing with them. But I'm excited about that group because they touch about 1,200 aircraft owners in the world that are their customers, and they have a nice big footprint. And we're now working on setting them up for e-commerce as well. So that one I'm excited to talk about. And we have a good mix. We have 3 in Europe, Ireland, and a couple in the UK. We just signed on a company that does common hardware, and they're in 7 continents, and they're owned by a much larger supply chain group that goes beyond just aerospace. And I mean, our software really could work for any complex machinery. Right now our focus is aerospace, but yeah, and the rest are in the US and in Canada. Exciting.
Your investor was really kind of your first customer, right?
Yes.
So because of that, talk a little bit about like what it's like to onboard a client now. Do you have to do a pilot or trials or?
So with the more complex customers, because we have a mix. We have small businesses that are kind of startup-ish, where they're, honestly, people that have lost. We have customer in the UK. It's a group of people that I believe some have lost their jobs due to COVID. and they pivoted and started their own businesses, and they use us standalone. And then we have customers that have really, large footprints with IT departments, and we tend to do pilots with them. Sometimes we'll do they're as sophisticated as having multiple environments. They have a sandbox environment themselves. And so we'll do a pilot on their sandbox environment or their staging environment, and then move to the production environment with them. So it's kind of the right tool for the job in that sense. But our onboarding process going into this year and literally in the past 30 days, we've gone through and redone that, put some more measurements. We've put templates together based off of the customer type with the task already predefined, and dashboards that go out once a week to all those customers as we're onboarding them with sort of the stoplight charts. So that part we're trying to get faster on, because it is slower, because you're dealing with people inside of organizations and they're not always prioritizing you to get information and things set up in a timely manner.
Yeah. So we know you have an investor for this firm. You talked earlier about that there was different ideas that you pursued, that sometimes you tried to raise money, sometimes you didn't. So talk about that, specifically having an investor in this company, and how has that been beneficial to your growth?
Yeah, he has continued to invest in us, in people, in helping us get talent. We just hired a CEO in January, and we brought in somebody from what was formerly a Boeing company. Boeing had just sold that company in November to one of our competitors. And that's the thing I should say is we are David amongst a lot of Goliaths that are out there. And I know we're doing something right because the Goliaths are very much paying attention to us. And we're at a point now that we know we have personal relationships, not necessarily because they want to, but because we have mutual customers with these Goliaths out there. And our investor sees that and recognizes it, and continues to help push us on that. The other thing is I should say we brought in a board of advisors at the end of last year. That's been really instrumental. People that have owned companies that are currently our customers and been in those roles before as decision makers, bringing in software like us, and running these part suppliers and maintenance repair shops as well. And so that part has been very instrumental, and it's helped drive more investments into the business. So yeah, he's invested a significant amount in us in the past several years. And so it's exciting.
Excellent. So kind of shifting gears a little bit towards success and things like that. When did you know that this particular company and idea was going to work? Did you kind of feel it all along, or are you still playing with especially like in an era of COVID with what happened to the airline industry?
Yeah,
it'd be a little scary.
Yeah, and it was last year when it hit. It was very scary. But what we took on our first customer in January of last year. And after about 30, 45 days of that customer using the application, and you see the hundreds of thousands of dollars of quotes going through your system, and parts and just the transactions and things happening, that part was like, we're on to something. This is going to work. But almost as you feel that momentum and you feel that working, and I'm sure my story is unique in the sense of a startup, but maybe not. I'm sure there's several of them out there, of course, that overlapped with COVID. But when COVID hit, we pumped the brakes. We hunkered down. We went to keeping our cash flow down to a very minimum, to sort of watch what was happening. But what we saw was in the private jet and biz jet world, things were picking up a lot sooner, especially in Asia, and as more and more people were getting out on their jets, and I'm sure they were like like me, except I'm in my car and driving somewhere, wanting to go to places to get outdoors and not be cooped up in the house. So that helped us, and that helped sort of reinforce that there's still going to be a market, and yeah, the BizJet market has really helped us. So we started picking up customers around that area. But the other thing that's happened is there's been a lot of tear down of aircraft. So most of the major airlines have a retirement cycle, and so they ramp those up and retired aircraft sooner, and started tearing them down. And so our software helps support the sort of notion of tearing down airplanes and putting parts on the shelves. And so we have some capabilities around accelerating that process with our mobile app. And so that's been helpful too. So we're positioned well. And then as business was coming back online, we heard and saw, I'm sure like a lot of businesses, where they were like, it's really hard to log into the VPN, the ERP system, when you're not a remote worker, and none of these companies had the infrastructure to support it. So that was sort of a real reality check for them. And even when they were able to get those things set up, because the way these systems are built, the experience was not very good. And so we've had a lot of customers that have joined us because of some of those reasons, because we have a web-based system, because we have a mobile app, and you don't stop and have to open up a VPN and do all those sort of things to do business.
That's exciting, actually. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, Savannah and the tech scene in Savannah is going to benefit from COVID as well, as more people got remote, as Kate and I like to call it, #choose Savannah. Right? Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to be in Savannah? If you can work anywhere, why would you not want to be here? So, what has your biggest challenge been in growing AeroParts Now?
The time it takes to sell the product. I had some assumptions that it would go a lot quicker, and the sales cycle tends to be a lot longer than we want. And I really think it's more related to the industry and the mindset and where the industry is. And let's just say it's a digital transformation cycle. The good news is it's a year ago or even 2 years ago, because we exhibited almost in April 2019, we exhibited in Atlanta at AbWeek MRO, and we really didn't have a whole lot at that point. We had only been developing for about 3 months, and we just wanted to test the waters, and it was really good. I mean, we had a really favorable response. We knew we were on the right track, but again, that sales cycle took a long time. But 2 years ago compared to now, it's gotten a lot faster. And I think it's a combination of we're getting better at our sales process, but the industry has more of an appetite for change and for getting better and more efficient. And we've also done some things to make it a lot easier to integrate with legacy ERP systems. And I think that's helpful when we make it easy, the easy button.
Easy button.
As best we can.
Yeah. So, what's the end game? What does success look like for AeroParts Now?
To have the majority of the industry using us as their sort of engine for commerce. We want to be the Shopify of this industry. Shopify's done really well in the retail space, and they have a B2B segment, but aviation's unique. There's things that don't relate to the size and color and those sort of variants that you see in traditional e-commerce systems. And so we truly want to push our industry into that era.
Very cool. Now, you had mentioned earlier, though, that you felt like the solution could work for other assets beyond AeroParts. So is the vision beyond AeroParts, or?
At this very moment, it's not. We're dead set focused on this industry and doing it really well. But we think there's a lot of opportunity. We just got back from our first trade show since COVID, and it was in Orlando. It was smaller than usual, but the activity around our booth, it was completely saturated the entire time. So which was great. I mean, the day went by really quick, and you're worn out and you lost your voice, and there was 6 of us there in the booth. And even then it was just, didn't feel like we had enough people at times to talk to everybody. And so yeah, we're excited about that. And there seems to be a lot of energy around having their own web presence out there. I know it sounds a little weird to say, having a web presence in this time of day, but truly our industry, you can't Google a part number and find it. It's just, and yet alone find it and find a picture and know that inventory is in there. Some big names have made some attempts to move this forward. But the problem is, it would be like having your competition selling your parts if you wanted to join their website and put your parts on their website. But yeah, one thing I wanted to mention was, losing my train of thought here, but yeah, you asked me what success looks like. That's right. Yeah. So
what about for you personally?
Getting up and enjoying what I do, working with people that I enjoy working with, and customers that enjoy working with you. That to me is what it's about. It's exciting when customers are, and we were on a call with a customer, and he's like, all right, I know it's like a candy shop, but could you also add this? Because I think they said, well, you unleashed the monster here. You provided this capability, and now it's only wanting me to push for even more. And so that's great when you have customers sort of in that mindset with you. They don't feel like they're losing something. They're just like, oh, this is great. Can I also have this? Can I have this? And so it's a good feeling. It's great. But it also it is challenging too to manage those customers because you can get overwhelmed by all the sort of requests that they want. But yeah, that part is great. I enjoy that a lot. So.
Do you have a customer advisory board, or that's just your regular advisory board?
We don't officially have one. We're working on it. So we've reached out this year to a couple customers, and they've expressed interest. So our goal is to do that. I'm trying to hire 2 more people. One of them is in customer success, and the other one is as a quality assurance engineer. Like many startups, we wear a lot of hats. And so the team that's really good at onboarding and helping train customers also throw on their quality hats and do testing when we do releases as well. So I want to get that out of their hands and bring in somebody to help do some automation on that for regression testing. And then that way we can continue to grow that team, and adding another person with that team to help with the onboarding process and then customer support as well. Because that's truly where we are. Is we have a good piece of software. There's a roadmap with a lot of features that we want to add to it. But foundationally, we have a product that provides value that's superior to what people have right now with regard to tools and software. So now we need to figure out how to get them into our system as quick as possible. And have a great experience and maintain that experience. Yeah.
Love that. We have a lot of folks that tune in for this podcast that are, I'll say, aspiring entrepreneurs. So they're not quite at this stage yet. We're hoping to inspire them to take the leap. Any tips, tricks, advice for those about to take the leap? I hate to be a broken record, but make sure what you want to do to bring to life or build, or make sure there's a market out there for it. It's so important. Put your ego aside and be humble, and put it in front of people in a format that, in other words, don't go off and build it. Get in front of people. Refine your pitch, because your pitch is also your product validation, even if it's just sitting in the lobby talking to somebody or having a casual conversation in an elevator. I think that's really invaluable stuff to do that as a starting point.
because you're going to learn from that whole process, and you're going to take those things and be able to apply it to ultimately what you would build with a lot more confidence that you're building something that there's a market for. So I think that's really important, because I will say I made that mistake building things too soon, spending a lot of time on it, hanging on to it too long, and should have said.
That's a hard one, isn't it? That's a hard one to learn.
Right, and the only the thing that is the same with everyone is time, and when you're doing, in my case, service work, you're trading time for money, and so it's just really important to validate things in a way that you don't spend years developing it without a market.
Yeah, excellent. At this point, I'm going to open it up to, we have a couple other viewers online, see if either Kate or Lou has any questions. And if not, we'll wrap.
Thanks, Will and Jen. I have a couple of generic questions. So, of course, we're average person. We all have some level of familiarity with the auto parts system, right? At least we're seeing the point of sale system in the parts store. How does it compare? How do you compare the aerospace parts with the auto parts system? The other question is, might be somewhat related. Is I know in the both in aerospace and automotive industry, they have big design, manufacturing service system. That's everything live in the CATIA system. Mm-hmm. The models and all that already specs already exist in that system. So I imagine you have some level of interaction with those systems, but on the other hand, if you're thinking of integration, there might be a much greater barrier, right? Or just it's not practical. I guess this may be related to Jen's broader vision questions.
Yeah. So I have some experience with CATIA, and the reality is the manufacturers, there's not a lot of, and I should back up and say we're focused on the aftermarket for aviation versus new airplanes, and so much of the CATIA side of things is dealing with the manufacturing side of the aircraft, and of course it goes out to the parts as well. But in just using any of those aircraft manufacturers, they tend to not share any of that data like that. So really, what you're relegated with is part numbers based off of IPCs, just sort of PDF manuals, Excel documents, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That just tends to be how the industry works. It is quite amazing, because you would again think that there's just a body of data out there that you could tap into, but it's not readily available. Is probably the best way to put it. And there's not a lot of motivation necessarily to sort of open up that data for others to use. And some of it is really competitive reasons as well. Yeah. And then you asked a question, how's it compare to the automotive stuff? I don't know. I've seen AutoZone. I've walked around and haven't bought anything recently, battery, but they tend to look like quite old systems in there that they're typing in part numbers and things and looking for things. I hear a lot of keyboard clicks. It reminds me sometimes of when you used to book airline tickets and they would type what would sound like a paragraph to book a ticket sometimes. And as far as aviation goes, there are, I think Jim was alluding to, AS400 systems that are still in play, but there are much of the systems are sort of Windows clients that have been installed. Nothing is cloud-based for the most part. The vast majority of the industry is using Windows clients and databases that are central.
Well, thanks.
Very cool.
I have a quick question. So you're in the military, right?
Yes.
And I just am curious, were there any things unique to being in the military that taught you how to be an entrepreneur, something that you learned that kind of was like, gosh, I carried this over into my new journey as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I definitely, I think a level of discipline and work ethic, following through and getting things done, communication skills. I think all those things helped because in the military, they definitely have a way of enforcing those things if you're not doing it right, that you don't get in the civilian world. So it's those things have been very helpful. Because I was in aviation and military, there's definitely some elements in there that's very specific to aviation that I could carry over. And it's funny, I haven't done a lot of defense stuff since leaving the Army, but now we're starting to work with companies that have defense contracts that sell to military. And so that's come in handy to have those experiences as well, and understanding enough of that supply chain. The entire industry, defense industry, uses a NSN number for all the national stock number for all the parts that are in sort of the government systems. And so even in our system, we have an NSN number that relates to the manufacturer's part number as well. So, but yeah, I think the military's helped me out tremendously with that. So, and the GI Bill, I was able to finish college using the GI Bill as well. So.
Cool.
I guess one other thought that I'd like to ask before we call it a night is B2B marketing, right? So we got Kate online. She's our director of communications, social media guru, email lists, all that sort of stuff. What's working for you right now in a complex, old school B2B way?
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely become a favorite, it seems, in this industry. Like I did not use LinkedIn very much until we got into this world, but it's interesting. We try to do a lot of inbound stuff where we're driving people to our website and get them to sign up for newsletters, send out emails, and then a lot of trade organizations. So we're members of user groups for the ERP systems, and we participate in those shows and participate in online forums. Those are really good lead gens as well, because those user groups, somebody will say, I have a problem. Can somebody help me out with it? And not that you want to come in and hard sell them, but a lot of times those problems we've already solved. And so you lend a hand on what the problem is. And of course they get intrigued. Well, what's AeroParts Now? And you say, oh, we've built all these integrations. We know that ERP software really well. If you're trying to do all that, we've already built that, and here's the cost per month. And they're like, well, that's a no-brainer. So that tends to be a really good venue for us. But it is very relational and business to business, and you have to spend time developing those relationships, and referral business is invaluable as well, and B2B for us as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. I was just curious about that because social media is all the rage. I'm like, well, it doesn't work for everything.
I mean, we have a good rhythm. We get a lot of stuff out there. People compliment us on all of our social media, but it is minuscule, the stuff that we get off of that direct stuff. But I will say, when we're having all those conversations that I just described, we will hear, oh yeah, I'm seeing you guys out on social media all the time. So there is that branding effect, and I do think the consistency out there, even though you don't get direct benefit, direct leads from it, I do think it's helping us in that regard.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to call on you for one more tip or trick to the entrepreneurs that are listening.
Sure.
What do you think? One more soundbite for them to take from you, your experience, and as they go on their journey.
I would say tap into resources like the Creative Coast, because I know, Jen, you've got a background with working with ATDC as well. Those are just invaluable things in our community. Find a mentor if you can, or two. having somebody that you can talk to behind the scenes when you have problems that pop up, and give back as well. So, pay it forward. I know it's a, cliche or hear it, but there's a lot to it. And when you do those things, your name gets out in a good way, and hopefully people are helping you as well. Out of the blue, people call you up and say, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn and I saw that you're doing this, and I have a friend that, and you're like, wow, I hadn't heard from you in years. I didn't even know you knew that I existed anymore. So yeah, just being a good citizen and taking advantage of organizations like this as well, I think is really good.